Virtual, hello, all of that good stuff. All right, so I tried to not give them too many hard questions, you all. I wanted them to ease into it a little bit more. So we'll just start here. In the spirit of Women's History Month, please, again, introduce yourself because I didn't do it a justice with your name, your organization, your title, and the woman that you most admire. This is for our panelists. So we just want to hear in your energy and your voice. Let's continue to go in alphabetical order just because we are virtual. It may make it easier. So we're going to go with Black, Foster, Sellers, Slaughter, and then Smith, please.
Well, good afternoon, ladies. I'm so excited to be here with you, sharing any information that I can. We are all examples in our own right. And so any information that I can share to uplift is awesome for me. I feel like I've done a good job. I am Dr. Twana Black. I am originally from Akron, Ohio. Spent the last 20 years in Columbus, Ohio, and as an administrator, an educational administrator, K through 12, adjunct professor at several local universities for 15 years there in the Columbus area. Served as principal in Reynoldsburg City Schools, and just recently in the last couple of years have transitioned to Virginia. Definitely a milestone in my life. After all my life, 40 plus years being in Ohio, I moved to Virginia, and I am here working for the Loudoun County Public School System. They created a position for me to coordinate with administrators when they're having policy issues and difficulty with their staff members and things like that. I coordinate with them to alleviate that stress, supposedly. And so the question is, the woman that motivates me, and I get this question regularly. And so I've really settled on one person outside of my share about Miss Yvonne. Really the woman I admire the most, and this may seem arrogant, is myself. I am from Youngstown, Ohio. I am the first college student in my entire family, both paternal side and maternal side. I achieved my doctorate degree at the age of 30, which was a very tough avenue. In Ohio, education is elite, and I just wanted to get there at the top very quickly. And so I had 3 kids during my doctorate degree. I was married, went through a divorce during my doctorate degree, obtained my administrative certification and my superintendent's license, all at the same time as a glutton for punishment. So when it comes to who I admire myself for the grind. Not too many people can finish a doctorate degree in 5 years with 3 babies. That's tough. And so I use that. My story is one to tell. And even at the age of 45 plus, I am the one person in my family, both maternal and paternal side, with a high standing degree. And so that says a lot, from where we come from to where we're going. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Dr. Black. Okay.
Wow, sis. Well, I admire you. That is amazing. I am Freida Foster, and I can't tell you how pleased I am and honored to be a part of this fantastic symposium. I've had it on since this morning. I've been doing all the things, but I've had it on. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. This is great. So yes, Soror, you have done an amazing job, Soror Cherell, and thank you for letting me be a part. I am a career public servant, and I currently serve as the vice chair for the New York State Workers' Compensation Board. And I've worked for the state in various positions for over 20 years. And while it's nothing I ever expected to do, it is rewarding work, and I wouldn't trade the experiences I've had for anything. I fell in love with public service pretty much right out of college when I began working for the City University of New York. I worked as a liaison for underrepresented women who mostly were on public assistance. And I helped them to be able to go to school instead of do some of those terrible menial jobs that they require sometimes for women who are accepting public benefits to do. So I was a liaison for, helping them do that and being in college, right? So the rush I got from helping these women put me on several trajectories that included being an advocate for women, an advocate for education, and an advocate for access. And 30 years later, here I am ensuring that injured workers, largely underrepresented people, truth be told, I help them to obtain the rights of, ensuring that they have some recourse, and not just employees, not just injured workers, but also businesses, but ensuring that they have some recourse when they are injured at work. But also keeping in community are the many extracurricular things that I do by sitting on various boards. I've served as a trustee for the City University of New York. I've served as a trustee for the Teachers Retirement System. I've served as a trustee for the New York City Employees Retirement System. And I've been on many boards. Currently, I'm the chair for the Harlem Community Development Corporation. And I sit on the Community Advisory Board for Public Television. And I also am the chair for the City University School of Public Health Community Advisory Board. So not to be cliche, but I have to say that my mother is and will probably always be the woman I continue to admire the most. She passed 2 years ago, but she, like many of our people, dealt with and overcame what I thought were insurmountable odds to just be able to live in a country that never fully recognized her citizenship and, in some cases, humanity, right? But in spite of growing up in abject poverty, she managed to obtain an education, migrate to the North, and build a career that her 2 daughters were able to both benefit and build from, to become, as they say, our ancestors' wildest dreams. She did what she did in hopes that we would be able to do better. And in some ways that happened, but in a sudden twist of fate, today, we now use her example and many others to fuel the strength that we need to face some of those same challenges that she faced, way back when. So hopefully we can be as strong and overcome as well as they did.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome from Kansas. My name is Amber Sellers, and first of all, I'm jet lagged. I just got into town last night from DC. Before that, I was in St. Louis, and before that, I was in Oklahoma. So I've put a lot of windshield miles, whether it's been through air, land. Haven't done sea yet, and it might be a while before I do that. But I am happy and energized to be with you this afternoon and to just be able to glean as much as I can from this presentation, as you are able to be filled and inspired by a nugget or a seed that I can plant with you today. Again, my name is Amber Sellers. I am born and raised in the wonderful state of Kansas. I say it's wonderful because my thrice great grandparents escaped slavery to come here. They were exodusters. They landed in Kansas right before the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and made roots temporarily in Lebec County, Parsons, Kansas, before venturing to Oklahoma, where my family tree rooted and sprouted and became what it is today. My background is I don't say it's an unusual background. I say that I'm finally catching up with the journey that God placed before me. My background was in kinesiology, sports science. And then somewhere before I started grad school, I realized that I had more of a desire to care for those who needed the care than those who had more privilege and access to it. And so interesting thought to have when dealing with athletes, but That's how my mind took it. And so I decided to get a master's degree in health education, and did a lot of parent involvement, parent engagement, parent empowerment through different mediums of early care and education, and then through working with safety net clinics. Traveled across the state of Kansas, spent some time in Southwest Kansas. Just to give you a thought about that, there's not a lot of Black people in Southwest Kansas, but I was close to Colorado and New Mexico. So I did a lot of traveling and getting out and, being young and learning about myself and who I was and who I wanted to be. And it was during my time out in Western Kansas that I realized that I had an affinity for policy and understanding and dissecting the why of, why does this exist? Why does this policy exist? Why does this law exist? Where did it come from? Almost like the epidemiology of policy. And so that's when I realized that, most folks have degrees in public policy. How can I finesse that? And worked my way through earning a second master's degree in public administration with a focus on urban administration and housing policy. And so really took a fondness to the impacts of housing policy and health and determinants of health. And so that's how I managed to find myself working for the State Department of Health, whether it's called HHS or public health in your respective states. But that's what I did, and did that, and working in the background as a regulation and policy research. So I spent 4.5 years working for the state, doing policy research, policy analysis, policy evaluation, and also regulation development. So I spent a lot of time doing government affairs. And so taking that desire of understanding the relationship of policy, regulation, and law. And then my deep fondness and love for community and grassroots organizing. Found myself take another step to where I am now as advocacy director for Trust Women Foundation, which is a foundation that provides reproductive and gender affirming care for individuals, not only in Kansas, but also in Oklahoma. And so we are one of the, I say premier, we are one of the premier and most used abortion clinics in the Midwest, especially as you see, as more states are putting restrictions on access to reproductive abortion care. So I do government affairs and advocacy work in that, and enjoy that aspect of my life now. It's stretching me in ways that I knew I needed to be stretched and could be stretched. And I find joy and challenge. And so I'm really enjoying that life right now. While being an elected official, I decided in 2021 to run for local office and was elected. It was the first African-American woman to ever serve in Lawrence as a city commissioner. Just recently won re-election in 2023. So I'm going into my second term. It's a 4-year term this time around. And so, I'm taking this time to enjoy life and understand my purpose. And so, that I think that came,
Commissioner, you want to share with us the woman that you look up to the most?
Yeah.
So we can move on to Slaughter and Smith.
Of course. I would say probably the woman whose earrings I'm wearing today, Fannie Lou Hamer. I think she's the original OG grassroots organizer. I mean, you can't say it better. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think a lot of us feel that way right now.
Got it. See why she's a commissioner? Y'all see why? She got it. She covers all areas of the government and the community. All right, moving on to our other two panelists, wonderful panelists, Brandi Slaughter and Lynnise Smith, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Everything you do is top quality. And so I'm just excited I've already learned and gleaned so much, and the panel hasn't even started. And congratulations again to Commissioner Sellers on your reelection. Again, I'm Brandi Slaughter. I was born in the coal fields of West Virginia, Logan, West Virginia. So in real poverty, right? And my mom moved to Columbus, Ohio, where of course I met Yvonne and others that are on this panel when I was a teenager. She was looking for work, trying to find opportunity. And so we moved there. And so, when I say home, I'm always split between, which is really home. Columbus is home, is where I've been the most. But I moved here to Maryland a couple years ago after being recruited to come to academia. While I have a undergraduate in political science, a law degree, I've always worked in kind of government affairs, legislative offices, activists, advocacy, like I've had a winding path, but now I'm here at the University of Maryland preparing the next future generation of advocates, advocates specifically for children. How did I make it here? After undergrad, I went to Morgan State, so this is my second time in Maryland, so also home, coming home, if you will, a homecoming. Once I graduated from undergrad, I had a political science degree, and political scientists typically continue to study to train more political scientists, right? Like it's very theoretical, not practical at all. So my first job out of college was as a social worker at a local settlement house in Columbus, Ohio, where I began to see these families come to my office needing a food basket every month, needing their light bill paid every month, or facing eviction unless we pay, this kind of fee or what have you. And I began to think there has to be a better way. And so while I spent 1 year at Ohio State University pursuing a master's in social work, it just became a burden for me. And so I course corrected, realizing that my first love was policy. Policy gives us this ability to impact systems that will move beyond one person at a time, right? And so that's the nature of my background. I'll keep it short because we've got so much more to talk about. My woman was Shirley Chisholm, but I can't say that now because the fabulous Miss Yvonne has already claimed that. I will take this opportunity to talk about Cherell Pizzigatti, though. She's referenced as part of the work I do here. I run that initiative. She passed away a few years back of cancer. I am a breast cancer survivor. And so when I came here, Pizzigatti is not a last name that you would think would be for a brown person. She was married to an Italian, but she was indeed a brown person who did a lot of work for children's advocacy. Like she was the last chair of the Congressional Committee on Children and Families. She was the first board chair for Parents as Teachers, which is a home visiting model. She served on school boards. When you run this woman's background and CV and resume, no question how committed she was to children and families. And so she inspires me daily. I never got a chance to meet her. Again, she passed away, and in my work, we just didn't cross paths. But every time I hear about her, I'm honored to advance her legacy and plant these seeds for the next generation of advocates.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Yvonne, for the invitation. My name is Lynnise Smith. I am now the president and CEO of the Women's Business Enterprise Council, Ohio River Valley. We just did a spin out, so we are now a standalone 501c3. And so I got a promotion from executive director as a result of that. So WeBack ORV actually provides like the gold standard of certification for women in business. So we certify, advocate, and support women-owned businesses. And then we're one of 14 RPOs, what they call regional partner organization through the WeBank network. So by trade, I am a supplier diversity, supply chain professional, and that's the lens that I typically look from. When I struggle, I'm gonna tell you, I struggle with this question because I'm like, I have to choose just one. It's like, but I would say I'm gonna be a rebel. I'm gonna say that every woman that I've came across has given me something that I actually admire, right? I walked away, every woman I tried to look at something that I want, that I see within her, that I'm like, wow. If it's not her style, the way she speaks, her swag, the way she commands a room, I just think that every woman that I've ever encountered has left some type of impression on me. From your Donna James, your Sharon Smith, your Yvette McGee Browns, your and your very own Yvonne Cherell. So, this woman, when I was looking at this role and I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to step into this role, I was very comfortable being a background singer. And she has told me multiple times that, it's time for you to step in front. You need to lead. It's time. You know, she has told me, you know, you continue to, I got caught. I was at a conference one time and she said, well, you're not learning anything because you should be teaching now. You need to start submitting proposals so that you can actually present. So it's those type of things that I would say that and others that make her dear to me. But you know, I definitely appreciate all your champion, your advocating, and in those talks we've had, Yvonne, you've been very supportive in my career. But then I will also leave you with this: is what I identify in all those women that I named is the same thing that I identified in my own mother, right? And that's tenacity. So my mother had MS. She retired at age 25 and raised 2 girls as a single parent. And to see the things that she went through, living in, you know, very modest means, and making $1 work, right? Making $1 work on government assistance, Social Security. We never wanted for anything. So I'll just leave that there, and I'll look forward to the rest of the questions.
Well, ladies, I think this is a great time to share your claps and your hearts and all of that for our panelists. Listen, while I have been in great contact with these ladies and have known them for years, you always learn something more amazing about someone that you just absolutely admire. And now I see why their motivation is so big, why their hearts are so huge, and while I can actually see the impact of their work. So let me move over. I'm gonna move out of order just a little bit because they were given the questions in advance. So I want to get into a little deeper because each of you represent very distinct disciplines and different areas of your industries, right? And so you've already talked about, some of you had already mentioned that you didn't necessarily know where the trajectory of your career. You may have started in one particular area, but you found yourself either following your passion or whatever the case may be. And so earlier we heard from Emily Campbell, our second keynote speaker, who authored, her and her team authored a Status of Women in Ohio report. And she talked about a lot of great gains. Women across the board, not just in Ohio, but women across the board are obviously out earning in our degrees, and we are doing some amazing things in leadership, and some of the leadership gaps are kind of closing. However, despite all of those great gains, Emily had also shared that we're still facing a higher percentage of poverty than our male counterparts, higher issues of anxiety and depression and mental health challenges. And Emily even mentioned that we are not getting the access and the help that we need, although we are presenting these kind of issues. So coming from your industries, coming from your disciplines and the areas that you focus on, how do you respond to these issues of great disproportionality and disparity, given efforts of equity and equality for women, especially women leaders, because we are not an anomaly, like we also are human and we still face those things. So given that environment, how do you respond to that? And let's go back the other way from the alphabet. So let's start with Sister Smith and go back up.
I knew you were gonna do that. What question number is this?
Number 3.
Is it okay? Because I mean, I wrote out my little notes because I get nervous, y'all. So I do. So I'm being transparent. I have anxiety.
And
so,
we have, listen, you in a safe space. We all do. We have had private conversations, many of us, about what anxiety look like. So take your time. And we are a flexible family. If you would like, I was just offering an order because of the Zoom.
I'm good.
Okay, let's go.
I can do that. Yeah. So I would say one of the things that I noticed in my career and what's impacting women is being held to a different standard, right? So we're often held to a different standard. And then we also have this thing for Black women that they feel like they have to be perfect, right? That they have to be, you know, and some of it's self-inflicted and some of it is what the community projects on us. And we collude by accepting it, and we try to, you know, do this little perfection thing. But I would say one of the things for me is what I'm trying to do is looking at how can I put this? I want to expand resources for women that are in business, right? So disparities and all that stuff exists, and we know it, and that's one of the reasons why I am in this role, because I believe that, when women lead, I mean, everyone benefits from it. And so trying to close the gap for women, and we're looking at creating allies and things like that. And I think that when I look at where we are, there's so much opportunity for us. There's no reason why we can't. There's no reason why we can't achieve the things that we want to achieve, right? But sometimes it takes people to be vulnerable and have those conversations. And so, like for me, for example, I thought everything was the issues that I was enduring was because I was Black. I really did. I led with that Black lens because I'm from Cleveland. I'm from what's considered a low income community, things like that. And all I knew was what I thought was the Black experience. But it wasn't until I became vulnerable enough to have conversations with friends that were white and talk about my Black experience that I found out it wasn't because I was Black. It was because I was a woman. So they could identify and relate to. And if they didn't create and we didn't co-create the environment, the safety to be able to have those conversations, I would have never known those type of things. So I think in order for us to advance and actually tackle on some of these challenges, we do have to be vulnerable. We have to create that safe space for us to have those conversations, in addition to creating allies out of men that are in the business world. So sometimes we have men that realize, oh, that's not good, but what they pause and they're reluctant to speak up because sometimes they're worried about, am I, overreacting? Am I silencing her voice? How do I show up as an advocate? So sometimes we have to train them up. So I would just say that, and I would just say, from when we talk about everything that's gone on, everything that we endure, we know women, we deal with a lot. We deal with a lot, and we have a lot of different roles within our family, right? And so I just say embrace the negative, because for me, all the things that happened to me, that happened, that I felt like I was the victim of, uniquely positioned me to be in the role that I'm in right now. So I hope I answered the question, but.
Yeah. Well, let me jump in, Lynnise. I love your responses. And I think, gosh, I think I'd be remiss coming from a policy space if I didn't kind of highlight that this week was Equal Pay Day. And while this report came out that said things are getting better, are they all the way better? No, they are not. I mean, I think the Pew Charitable Trust, let me see, they said that, where is it? Oh, the median annual earnings for women working full-time year-round was $52,360. That's just 84 cents for every dollar earned by men. But for Black women, Hispanic women, and others, the gap is even higher. And we've seen that statistic over and over again, right? Like, so, show me my greenbacks, right? That's how you can show me you love me, right? Like, is give me some cash. And I think it's more than just giving equal pay for equal work. It is also making sure that we are valuing the work that women do, right? Many folks on this line are engaged in work that is meaningful for caregiving, school teachers, social workers, etc. Yet they are the ones that get paid the least, right? While we prioritize these other industries and they get more money, right? And so for me, at some point, it is, what do we value as a community? And how do we show that value? And part of that value should be how we compensate people. And when we think about, so, I started as a social worker, right? A single mama with maybe $2 more than being on food stamps, right? Like maybe $3 more than being on Section 8, right? Like, so, when we think about the people that have the heart to serve, compensating them appropriately so that they aren't struggling as they're giving out. I think beyond that, for me, in terms of a policy, we shouldn't have insurance pay for wellness activities, yoga visits, spa visits, massages, right? Like, 'cause when you think about mental health, like, it's a no-brainer that we should provide care and access to care for people that need help, right, for their mental health. But beyond that, there's a disparity that exists, that some people are able to pay for these things that are rejuvenating, right? And others are pushed out of that. And so, you know, it shouldn't just be reserved for the rich, right? Like, so these are all things that are good things that are beneficial that we all should have access to. And so having some type of policy around, you know, caring for people in our community. And I'll start with that.
I'll start the conversation with this. What I've seen when it comes to the impact of women and women folk in this space is that we, and I want to make sure I had to write it down to make sure I said it right. We use our own gifts to attack each other. And now we've allowed others to use those gifts to attack us. And so our ability to do great things is impacted by those who use it against us. We know women are great leaders. If you look at what is happening politically, as well as in the public and private sector, the very things that make women awesome are used to their detriment. Childcare. Okay. Now all of a sudden there's this big issue around childcare. And you got folks like, oh, we have to have childcare 24 hours a day. We got to have childcare here. Now, you know, we got to pay people right. Black and brown folks have been childcare workers since the dawn of DNA. Okay. But we've used that, we weaponize that against women and women folk in their advancement. And now you have it on the back burner, and now we have to give incentives to predominantly male-run organizations to give space for women to show up, to be competitive, because competitive is based on attendance, not skill now. It doesn't make any sense. So we talk about a policy. The policy is paid family leave. Okay? The policy is paid family leave. We don't need to have 24-hour childcare, because who's going to work that? Who wants to pick their child up at 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, drive them somewhere? So we use the very gifts that we have are used against us to continue to perpetuate it. And it's incremental. So it's a little bit of an advancement, but it's still, from a policy and system standpoint, you know, you're making strides, but it's incremental in a bad way, not incremental in a good way. And so there's a long game at play here. And while we are mobilizers, we are organizers, we are grassroots, we know how to stand things up very quickly. And when we are in consensus and we are in collaboration with each other, there's movement. And so the very thing that is used against us is to keep the long game, is to keep us defrayed, keep us at fray with each other, and to keep continuing to put out these small fires so that we are not able to build momentum and to build a stronger movement. That's what I see. That's what I'm seeing in my community. That's what I see in my state. That's what I'm seeing regionally, is that the very thing that binds us together is used against us to continue to limit our momentum and the speed of our momentum and the girth of our momentum. And so I think that's where we have to get to a point where we set ourselves up for the long game and not for the reactionary, because we've become quite a reactionary society. And we're seeing advancements to our detriments is because there's those who are adversarial or just wanting to keep the status quo are playing the long game. And so that's where it's important for us to come together and to really analyze. But I mean, I always, I worked in early care and education. I spent a lot of my time in state government on that very topic and speaking to governors and legislators about that topic. And I mean, we take something just as that, and it's divisiveness in it, whether it's pay, benefits, access to capital, because it's an educational piece as well as a business piece. and we've made it adversarial within hearing women talk about, one or the other, when it should be just, like I said, paid family leave. That's not always that simple. We know it's not that simple, but like I said, the very thing that makes us who we are, and the essence of who we are, our greatness and our leadership, is what's used against us, and it's played at a long game. So we have to be able to counter that by by building our own long game structure. Structurally, that's where we need to be.
Oh, Foster and Black, we just waiting on your flow. If not, we can move on. We waiting on your
no,
flow.
I was
I'm borrowing some leadership from Smith. I don't want to keep, I love that. Let's just flow. So I'll just give you
I gotta jump in. I wasn't sure where I was. I was like, oh, where's the list? But anyway, no. I have to say, I think that just like integration, women in the workplace and in leadership specifically resulted in unintended consequences, right? And so many to name, but the allowance for us being in these leadership roles obviously largely frowned upon by the other half of the gender, right? In the beginning, and the support needed wasn't given. So is my opinion, mental health is intersectional, right? Our mental health is what suffers the most. I mean, I know I do, I will admit it. And, race and gender shape our experience. And it's also an emerging DEI issue nonetheless, right? And quite frankly, the list of challenges that we face is long, right? And it's not directly work related, but it is because of who we are. It's because we are women, right? For example, we are prone to certain diagnoses. We are twice as likely as men to experience depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and PTSD. We're more likely to battle eating disorders, pay equity, caregiving responsibilities, like mentioned, gender-based violence we face. And those are among the contributing risk factors that affect our mental health conditions, right? And then you pile on infertility, menopause, postpartum depression, all those things that we go through just as women. And now we're going through them in the workplace. And then we're underrepresented, in the leadership positions. We often have that double only status, right? We're women and we're women of color. That provides a healthy amount of challenge, not to say stress, maybe depression, right? And then if we're members of the LGBTQIA community, that's another thing, right? And we have sexual harassment to deal with. And then we're dealing with imposter syndrome, and maybe we're juggling parents, parents, taking care of parents or being parents. So these challenges are largely invisible and we don't discuss them, right? Because we have the I can do it all mentality, right? I can do it all while our mental health is doing the most. And so my opinion, we need wives. We need wives, right? We need wives, or at least much more support than most of us are getting.
Just to jump in, I was pausing because I thought you were going to jump to another question, but the question asked us to how do we respond to these issues? As an educator in the educational community, I could lament on and on like all these other ladies did about the list of struggles that we have, but we all know those struggles. When answering the question, how do I handle it, or what suggestions do I offer that we do? One of the first is find a village. Too often as women, we are so busy dealing with all of these things that we are in competition with each other. And instead of supporting each other or finding that safe village, we're trying to show one another that we are better than the other, instead of working in concert. There is so much world out here, so much world that two people can be very great at the same thing, and we can charge forward together without consistently competing. Saying things like, sis, you look beautiful. Oh, that is a sharp outfit. lifting each other up and building a supportive community around each other in our different jobs. How often do we praise somebody for doing a great job? Or if they get an award, we're sitting back just kind of looking at them like, yeah, good job. But we don't support and uplift that good job or try to run in concert. Iron sharpens iron. If we stay in those positive realms and continue to support and uplift, and even when we fall down or fail at something, how often do we come back secretly, privately, and say, listen, let me help you rebuild this? Or are we looking like, you fell down, let me keep moving because we can handle everything, or we're great at these other things, so we want to continue to uplift. So my solution, or the things that I try to do, is find a village, find a supportive village, and respectfully disagree. Does not have to be an argument because I disagree with your opinion. It does not have to mean that I am being unsisterly because I disagree with your opinion. It just means we have different opinions. We can support each other in our different venues and respectfully have discord with one another. Find your village, support each other, give positive comments. Don't always sit in competition and be in the appearance of competition with one another. So those would be my suggestions to that question.
Excellent, ladies. Thank you for responding to that question. I'm going to ask one more, and then I'm going to ask the participants, if you all have questions, please either put them in the chat, or we're going to save a little bit of room so that you can also ask some great questions too. So because you all are already so amazing, you've answered many of the questions I already had, but you really was able to put a little bit more meat around it. And we're looking at policies. I mean, Brandi and Commissioner Lawrence kind of killed it around what does policy look like for some of these inequities and disproportionality, and listening to the narratives too. Like, we are understanding, again, many of this is not authored by us as women, right? So we have in this amazing space about 4 generations represented in this symposium. We've been watching these studies over the couple of years about the growing multi-generational workspace. And I think at this point, 35% of our workspace now is comprised of millennials and Gen Zs, who we will hear from a little later today. But I want to lift up that multi-generational conversation. I don't know if, again, Policy Wonkers, I follow Tiffany Cross. I don't know if many of you do. She has a new podcast called Across Generations. I know it's on, I think, iHeart or Spotify or whatever. But anyway, the beauty about this new podcast is she is weaving conversations with obviously younger kind of generations. I think Tiffany identifies as a Generation Xer, which I proudly identify with. And if anybody else on this Zoom is a Generation Xer, that just means you are the dopest people. Generation Xers are just the dopest generation, period. And y'all can tweet that, you can argue with somebody else, but the Generation Xers, we're the best people. The 90s, yes. So anyway, but no, seriously, ladies. So let's talk a little bit about multi-generational support and some of the things that maybe you learned from members of our, older generations, baby boomers or the traditionalists, that really stuck with you, that helped guide you through your career trajectory, even if it wasn't on the path that you thought it would be on, but you got some gems or some nuggets from that generation. And then, or tell us about what would you like to share with those who are coming behind you. Brandi, you're in a great position of academia. Dr. Black, you are an educator. You all are, Smith is building up young women in businesses. So what are you also sharing to younger generations so that we can continue this legacy? We can close these gaps on inequities. We can see our ancestors and becoming their wildest dreams in the most unimaginable way. So I'm gonna leave it like that, and I'm gonna let you all flow, because Lynnise taught me something today. So you flow how you feel like flowing, and I'm gonna be quiet and let y'all go in whatever order you feel comfortable.
I'd like to jump in on that one. Through something that has resonated with me that I use daily in my life, is that everybody is not everybody. In our effort to please, we jump on the response that everybody said, so we need to do. As a leader, you have to trust your instincts. Leadership can be a road of isolation. And when you're traveling, no one wants to go along. But when you start winning, everybody swears that they had a stake in your victory. They leave you alone until you're winning, and then everybody wants to jump on board. We have to understand, especially when social media, again, I deal with a lot of students, I deal with a lot of adults who are caught up with pleasing. I know we've been talking a lot about policy and we've been talking a lot about change, but as we talk about individual growth and individual success, we have to understand that when somebody comes to you and says, well, everybody wrote and everybody said, unless you have the evidence, everybody is not everybody. It could be one or two people that want you to do it their way and not letting you be great. Stand on your own 2 feet. Know that the road can be lonely, but when you're winning, everybody wants to be on board, and knowing how to balance that is key. So some older people told me that, and it is a motto that I guide my life on. Everybody is not everybody.
I'd like to jump in if that's okay. For me, many of you might be familiar with Tricia Hershey's NAP ministry, right? She's released this book about rest. Rest is resistance. And in that book, she talks about her grandmother and how her grandmother would take these power naps, right? Like would just kind of sit to the side. And that resonated with me so much because I remember my own grandmother doing that. And so for me, I think what I've gained from both the book and the reminder of my own family is that rest is important. And to the point that was just raised, you know, how we define our success, how we define how we show up in this world is authentic to us and our own experiences. So, you know, I don't rush to be busy anymore. There was a point in time where I felt like if I was sitting still, I wasn't accomplishing anything, right? Or I'm wasting time to move to this next goal or whatever that I have. But I recognize now that, you know, rest is the place where you can become creative. And I'm real intentional who gets to experience my time. I'm real intentional about doing the things that bring me joy. You know, not everything about what we do is, you know, sunshine and roses, but so I got to counter that, right? Like with the things that are bringing me joy, and really be thoughtful and careful about, you know, just like I look at my finances, like and regularly reassess, just like I look at my health, you know, kind of markers and reassess, like what are the things I need to do and tweak. I look at my time in the same way. Where am I spending my time? Am I too heavy over here, too heavy over there? Because when you get to a certain place in leadership, people pull on you. The more effective you are, the better, leaders get things done, right? So then it becomes, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And so for me, it really is assessing how I'm spending my time and spending it in ways that are fulfilling to me. And so that's what I would take from the ancestors. Like I said, that book blessed my heart so much because it just reminded me of a time where, while my grandmother didn't have any more than like an 8th grade education, right? There's some things about the way in which we approach life, right, that have stuck with me a long time. Outside of faith, taking a rest, taking a little nap. So let's get some sleep. But let's have our tea, and then, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, get our siestas.
I'd like to amen on that. Let's get some sleep. I think for me, recently and ongoingly, right, in this political cesspool that we find ourselves in, I find that faith and strength are the two things that I am coming back to in terms of, lessons, right? My mother's all-time jam was the serenity prayer, right? Right? God grant me to the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the older that I get, the more that these words speak to me. Because if you don't believe, you've already failed, right? If you don't believe in your faith, if you don't believe in yourself, You got to believe there's a reason for it all, right? And the lesson is standing together, because division is a common recipe for conquering. So a lot of times, as a young person, I was the quiet and the shy one, and I was the one that wanted to just go hide under anything, did not want to be seen or anything. And it took years of mentors, actually, and thank God for mentors, right? It took years of mentors seeing in me things that I did not see, and I take that lesson and I try to do that for younger people, because I recognize the people who are hiding behind the trees, hiding under the bushels. I see them like bright lights, because that's what I used to be. And we can't be what we can't see. They can't be what they can't see. And so that is such a big motivation for me to make sure that I am seen. I am seen now. It's like I want to participate in things that I usually would be like, I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that. But I know now, being of a certain age, the chances of me participating and showing up, I will see them and I'll be able to point them out, but they'll see me and they'll be like, oh, she did this, or she's from Harlem too, or she has locks, or, whatever it is that we're representing. It's important for us to come out and represent. So, those are the things that I try to make sure that I keep in order.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in here. I'll say that it's been all the little things like be yourself and, all those kind of things that you just like, oh, they're just saying that. What does that mean? When you keep living and you figure it out, that all these lessons that in these words of wisdom that I heard, that I thought that things were just, people were just saying that were kind of cliche, actually have so much impact. But I'll tell you that actually one of the things that was most beneficial to me was, and I actually was going through therapy, right? So I was in therapy for my anxiety and all that other kind of stuff. Because I'm telling you, COVID hit me hard. And and I had been overworking. And I'm just be transparent. I had been overworking to the point that I would break down, and I literally didn't want nobody to see me cry. I didn't want nobody to see me sweat. I wanted to be perfect, all that kind of stuff. And I would go into the conference room and cry and come back ready and go to my next meeting. And it wasn't until I got vulnerable and I let this, I called, I had a sister, at work, and she was like, what is wrong with you? I've never seen you like this, right? And I was like, and she prayed with me. And so we would get in conference rooms, and when we needed when I needed that help and that support, I would call her like, where are you at? Meet me in this conference room, and we would pray together, cry together, hug, all that stuff, and then put our ammunition on and go out and face the world. But I was so bad that even my therapist hadn't seen me like that before. Right? Because I was taught that you have to represent yourself a certain way. My grandfather, like, oh, no, we own the dry cleaners. You don't go out with your clothes, messy and this and that, whatever. You project a certain image. Well, what happened to me was this particular day, I broke down and I had an appointment for my therapist. And I was like, I ain't going there looking like this. I'm not going there like this. And I decided to go, and I walked through the door. And she was like, you need time off work. And she literally gave me, she was like, you don't go to work, don't do nothing, you need to disconnect or whatever. And I went on medical leave. And that was right when COVID hit. And it was very, it was just interesting. It was so interesting. But in part of those conversations, I always talked about what I admire in other people and what I was trying to fix in myself and what I didn't see in myself that I felt like was wrong. And one of the things she told me to do, she was like, write a list of all the things that you admire in all these leaders that you see, right? This tenacity, this, well-spoken, they're able to do all these different things. And then she said, now I'm gonna tell you this, everything that you checked off, you have within you. And And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was like, because you could not recognize that skill and that talent if it wasn't already within you. So now you just have to build it, right? Now you have to build that muscle and you have to share it and put yourself in environments where you can cultivate it, you know, develop it and do whatever. So I would just say continue to build that muscle. First start off with your checklist, write a list of all the things that you admire in all these women. And then now let's create safe space for you to practice developing either those skills, you know, if it's public speaking or whatever it is that you want to do. Like, I'm an introvert. I never saw myself being on stage. I've been on stage with 5,000 people in the audience, and I thought I was going to have a panic attack because I never, ever thought that I would be here. I came from 55th in Cleveland. I went to East Tech High School, if anybody wants to know anything about Cleveland. And I was ashamed at some point in my career to even admit that, because it meant I was something. It meant that that there was a stigma associated with it. I'll just say that. And so I was ashamed because I felt like I would get shamed, and I did. I had some smart comments come back to me like, you know, I didn't know you was a hood rat, and you know, all these kind of things that would come out of people's mouths when you tell them where you're from. So I hid what I did and where I was from. And then I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't always say things the best way, but I say it with heart. And so I'm just like, I am going to continue to show up. And the best thing I can tell anybody is to be yourself and to be authentic. And if you're meant to be in that room, they will make space for you. Your gifts and your voice and all that stuff will make space for you.
I'll add real quick. One of the things that I have honed in on in my older years is the value and understanding of caring and believing. And so we all care about things. You know, we care about the environment, we care about self-care, Black excellence, you name it, we care about it. Caring just means acknowledging. Saying that in this space, I want my name to be added to the list of folks that believe that has an understanding for this thing. That's what caring is. Belief in something is giving of your time, talent, treasure, and capacity. What you're willing to stretch yourself for, give, sacrifice, move mountains over. Okay? There are things that I care about that boss believes in. Boss knows who boss is. There are things that boss cares about that I believe in. And the thing is that there is no need for us to create discourse about that. There is enough of us around to believe in the things that I care about and to care about the things that someone else believes in. And so I have learned not to pick my battles, but to preserve my space, my time, and my mentalness, my mental capacity by recognizing the things that I care about and the things that I believe in. Knowing that sometimes things that I believe in will fall off, or I will reach my point with it and will now elevate something that I've cared about to belief. Or I just may continue to keep space available in my belief bucket because there's other things that I want to put my capacity towards. And so that's what I tell this next generation. You don't need to be all the things. Use your gifts to find folks who have the capacity to believe in the things that you care about so you can focus on the things that you truly believe in and know that there will be time and place for the other stuff to make its way.
Amen. Amen. First of all, amen to all of the ladies. But because we only have about 6 minutes before we need to take a wellness break, I want to get to another leader's question. And it really segues from Commissioner Sellers' conversation about just taking a break and realizing, and I'm loving the conversation because we are beginning to say to ourselves, we got to give ourselves grace, y'all. We have to take rest. You know, I've listened to podcasts that talk about this, Therapy Speaks, and how people are so quick to define things in negative therapy terms that they don't really know the definition, the true definition. But Ashley gave us a good idea that I think we're going to take all these nuggets that are being dropped, all of these good gems, and we're going to turn into a new type of Therapy Speaks. And we're going to put like maybe a glossary of good stuff like this. Like when you forget that rest is necessary, you can go back to what Brandi told you in the book, and you know that in order for us to refuel, we have to have the rest. So Brandi, this is the last question. If you all can get us there by 2 o'clock. Brandi wants to know, Ashley wants to know, looking at your career now, what would you tell your 30-year-old self specifically? I don't know why she said 30 specifically, maybe. That's my winking, y'all, but she said 30 specifically. Right. So what would you tell your 30-year-old self? And we got up until 2 o'clock.
Slow down and enjoy life. It's going to pass you by quickly.
Let's see. Life is short, the world is long. No, life is short, the world is wide. To thine own self be true.
I would say, don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. You got time. Don't be in a rush.
I would say you don't have to know everything, because I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know all the answers right now, right away. So I would tell myself, you don't have to know. And sometimes it's none of your business.
I'm not sure if I'm last, but I would just say that, stop and enjoy the moment. Celebrate the wins. Celebrate those small wins, because they mean just as much as the big ones that are high, visibility or whatever. And smell the roses as you go too. Enjoy the moment.
Well, let me say this as we close this session. I know it felt like a little bit of a, love session, and I absolutely do appreciate, but these relationships that I have committed to these women, this panelist, is real. Beyond the sisterhood, it's real because these are women that I do admire. These are women who really are shaping the community. I am watching them. I've been a part of them. I have learned from each of them. So I am grateful to have had this opportunity to learn from you all even more. And so I hope that you would join me in thanking our presenters, our panelists for this afternoon, Dr. Twana Black, Freida Foster, Amber Sellers, Brandi Slaughter, Lynnise Smith. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon and spending some time. We hope that you can continue to hang out. We got some great, amazing workshops coming up this afternoon.